Hello, welcome to OJ Studios. Please enjoy this week's short story, Bet, by Olivia Julius.
Chapter 1 Regrets. My mom appeared in my doorway, and the moment our eyes met, I knew why she was there. She didn't need to explain. The denim ruffle skirt she clutched in her hand, Rebecca's favorite, told me everything. "I got other things for you too, Tyler," she said gently, laying the skirt across my bed. From a plastic shopping bag, she pulled out more items, a pink tank top and a pair of pink panties covered in a rainbow of tiny hearts. I stared at them, my stomach twisting. "Mom," I pleaded, my voice barely above a whisper. I glanced down at the clothes. They weren't meant for me, not for a teenage boy. They belonged in the dresser of an 8-year-old girl. A girl like Rebecca. Mom draped the skirt over my desk chair, then quietly left the room. I heard her footsteps trail down the stairs, and I knew what she was going to get next, the potion. The one that would turn me into a kid again. I'd been changed before. That part wasn't new. But knowing I'd be a little kid, and a girl this time, that was something else entirely. And honestly, it was more than I was ready for. I sat down on the edge of my bed, staring at the pink tank top and the tiny heart-pattern panties, my thoughts drifting. This wasn't the first time Mom had used magic on me. Not even close. I've been a little boy again, twice, actually. Once when I broke my arm, and she wanted to give me a do-over summer. Another time just because she missed how cute I was as a toddler. I didn't really mind those. It was weird, sure, but kind of fun too. Like hitting rewind on your life. I've even been a dog. Yeah, a golden retriever. That was a wild weekend, literally. Chasing squirrels, barking at mailmen, eating out of a bowl. It was weirdly freeing. And, okay, maybe a little gross. Then there was the time at the creek in our backyard. My sister Rebecca and I were swimming, and out of nowhere, Mom called out from the porch and poof, gills, fins, scales. We were fish. For hours we darted around underwater, exploring places no kid could reach, flicking through the reeds, and playing tag in the current. It was amazing. But this was different. I'd never been female before. Never worn girls' clothes, or had to think about what it meant to be a girl. And definitely never been a little girl. The idea made my chest tighten. It wasn't just about the skirt or the pink stuff, it was about becoming someone entirely new. Someone I didn't understand. I looked at the clothes again. They seemed so small. So not me. And yet, I knew Mom wouldn't have gone this far, without a reason. I looked at the clothes again. They seemed so small. So not me. And yet, I knew Mom wouldn't have gone this far, without a reason. That's when a memory came back. Yesterday evening, the football game, the crowd, the lights, the moment everything changed. We were sitting on the bleachers, Rebecca beside me, bouncing with energy like she always does. Our high school team, the Lions, was ahead by 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. The band was playing, the cheerleaders were flipping, and the whole town was practically buzzing with victory. Rebecca leaned over and said, "I bet the Lions lose." I laughed, loud enough that a couple of parents in front of us turned. "That's impossible," I said, grinning. "There's like 6 minutes left. We're up by 14. No way the Vikings come back from that." But Rebecca just smirked. "I bet they win," she said, eyes sparkling. "Oh yeah." I raised an eyebrow. "Well, if the Lions win, you have to be a boy all day tomorrow." She didn't even hesitate. "Fine." "But if they lose," she leaned in close, her voice dropping to a mischievous whisper. "You have to be a girl. My age. For the whole day." I laughed again. "Deal." And we shook on it, right there in front of Mom, who was sipping hot chocolate and giving us that look. The one that says you kids better be serious, because I can make it happen. We didn't think it'd matter. Not really. But then the Lions fumbled. Twice. 1 pick six. 1 miraculous onside kick. A touchdown in the final seconds. The crowd went silent. The Vikings had won. Rebecca looked at me with the biggest grin on her face. "Better start picking out your outfit." And Mom? She just smiled and nodded like everything was already settled. The roar of the crowd faded from my memory, and suddenly we were back home. Last night. The game had ended, and I'd barely spoken a word on the ride home. Rebecca couldn't stop smiling. I could barely look at her. As soon as we stepped inside, I pulled Mom aside, trying to keep my voice calm. "Hey, so about that bet?" She raised an eyebrow. "Yes, Tyler. I mean, it was just a joke. We didn't actually mean we'd do it, right? You don't have to actually turn me into a girl. It was just a silly." "Your exact words were, 'Deal,'" she said, walking toward the kitchen. "And you shook on it. In front of me." "Yeah, but come on, Mom. A little girl? Her age? That's a bit much, don't you think?" She set the kettle on the stove like we were talking about weekend plans, not magical transformations. You made a promise, and you know how I feel about following through. But I started. She turned to me, smiling gently but firmly. First thing in the morning, you'll be Rebecca's age. And a girl. Just for the day. A bet's a bet, Tyler. I stood there stunned as she walked away. Now, I was back in the present, sitting on the edge of my bed, staring at the outfit she left for me. The denim ruffle skirt, the pink tank top, and the heart-patterned underwear. First thing in the morning, she'd said. And now it was morning. Chapter 2, No Way Out. The soft creak of my bedroom door opening snapped me out of my thoughts. Mom stepped inside, holding a small glass bottle. The liquid inside shimmered faintly, swirling with a strange pink-gold glow that didn't look entirely natural. I'd seen it before, different colors, different effects, but this one felt final. She didn't say anything at first, just walked over and handed it to me like it was a cup of orange juice. I stared down at it, fingers tightening around the cool glass. So, she said gently. Ready? I didn't answer right away. I just kept looking at the potion, watching the strange light dance across the surface. There was no getting out of this. No last-minute escape plan, no clever loophole. I'd made the bet and I lost. And Mom, she always followed through. I glanced up at her. You've got the reversal one, right? She nodded once. Hidden. Safe. You'll get it after dinner. I swallowed hard. And I'll be a girl? Like actually a girl? For the day, she said like it was no big deal. And Rebecca's age. 8, just like you promised. I wanted to argue. To stall. To beg one last time. But I knew it wouldn't matter. Mom sat on the edge of my bed, brushing a strand of hair out of my eyes. It's just one day, Tyler. Keep your word. Learn from it. Who knows? You might even have a little fun. I snorted quietly, still staring at the potion. Yeah, right. But I lifted it anyway. My hands were shaking. I raised the potion to my lips, hesitating for one last breath. It smelled faintly like bubblegum. Weird. I wasn't sure what I expected, something bitter or spicy or smoky, but instead it was sweet. Innocent. I closed my eyes and took a sip. It tasted like bubblegum, too. Like those pink cubes from a gas station, soft and sugary with a hint of artificial fruit. Too normal for something that was about to completely upend my reality.
The warmth hit my chest first, blooming outward like a slow spreading heat. I opened my eyes. The bottle was still half full, but I could already feel it working. My fingers tingled. My toes curled inside my socks. Then, slowly, everything around me started to stretch. The bed beneath me felt bigger. The floor felt farther away. My legs started pulling up, shrinking, while my arms got thinner, lighter. My t-shirt, once snug, began to droop around my shoulders. My jeans slid loose around my waist. Ugh! I grunted, watching as the room grew around me. The sleeves of my shirt now hung past my fingertips. My jeans bunched up around my legs, practically swallowing my feet. Even my socks felt like floppy boots. I looked down at myself, heart thudding. My hands were smaller, delicate, softer. My voice had changed too, high-pitched and strange in my ears. I was shrinking. I was changing. And there was no stopping it now. My legs swung off the bed now, barely even brushing the floor. The last waves of warmth pulsed through me, like my bones and muscles were still negotiating the final changes. My face felt different, rounder, softer. Even my hair had a strange weight to it, like it had grown longer while I wasn't looking. I sat still for a moment, breathing shallowly, my oversized hoodie drooping off one shoulder. The sleeves bunched up around my hands, and my jeans were now pulled like denim puddles around my tiny feet. Slowly, I slipped off the bed and stumbled to my full-length mirror. What I saw made me freeze. A little girl stared back at me, no more than 8 years old. She had big brown eyes, soft features, and messy dark hair that brushed her cheeks. The hoodie hung on her like a blanket, the hem reaching past her knees. The sleeves were still too long, and she had to tug them back to see her hands. But it was me. That girl in the mirror was me. I raised one arm. She did too. I blinked. So did she? I felt my throat tighten. I wasn't just smaller. I wasn't just younger. I was a girl. And I had a whole day ahead of me like this. I had barely taken a step away from the mirror when I heard footsteps pounding up the stairs, quick, light, and full of energy. The door flew open. "Tyler!" Rebecca burst in, eyes wide, mouth open. Then she froze. She stared at me, at the pink tank top, the ruffled denim skirt. Her eyes lit up. "Oh! My! Gosh!" She squealed. "You look so cute!" I blinked, unsure what to say. Rebecca didn't give me the chance. "We're twins!" she shouted, grabbing my hands and jumping up and down. "You look just like me when I was your age! We're gonna be sisters for a whole day!" That's when Mom appeared behind her in the doorway. "No, no, no," she said with a shake of her head, "you're not sisters!" Rebecca stopped bouncing. "Why not?" Mom folded her arms. "Because we can't exactly tell people I've had a second 8-year-old daughter hiding in the attic for all these years. Think about it, what would people say if Rebecca suddenly had a twin sister no one's ever met?" Rebecca tilted her head, considering. Yeah, that would be weird. "So," Mom continued, "you're cousins today. Got it? Visiting from out of town. And we'll think of a story to explain why you're staying for the day." I opened my mouth to protest, but before I could even form a sentence, Rebecca clapped her hands. "Ew! Then she needs a name! You need a super girly name!" She turned to me, practically bouncing on her toes again. "What about Bella? Or Daisy? Or Sparkle?" I grimaced. "Sparkle? Okay, not Sparkle," she said quickly, waving her hands. "But what about Chloe? Or Madison? Or Lulu? You look like a Lulu." "I do not look like a Lulu," I muttered. She put a finger to her chin. "What about Princess?" "Not helping," I said under my breath. Mom just laughed quietly and leaned against the doorframe. "Well, Tyler isn't going to work for the day. You'll need something else." I crossed my arms, the skirt ruffling with the movement. "Do I get a say in this?" Mom and Rebecca both looked at me, then at each other. And shrugged. I sighed, long and loud, feeling the weight of the ruffles swish around my legs. "Okay," I muttered. "Fine. You can call me Samantha." Rebecca gasped dramatically, hands flying to her cheeks. "Oh! I love it!" I rolled my eyes. "But Sam for short," I added quickly. "Just Sam." Rebecca giggled. "Samantha it is! My cousin Sam from out of town. This is going to be so fun!" I wasn't convinced. Mom nodded with approval. "Samantha it is," she echoed, then gave me a small wink. "You made a deal, and you're honoring it. That's a good trait, Sam." I didn't feel noble. I felt like a walking bubblegum commercial in a skirt that bounced every time I moved. Rebecca took my hand. "Come on, Sam! Let's go downstairs! I want to paint your nails!" I froze. "Wait, what?" She was already dragging me toward the door. And the day had only just begun. Rebecca raced off ahead, chattering excitedly about all the things they could do. Mom disappeared down the stairs, leaving me standing there alone. I turned slowly back to the mirror. The girl looking back at me, Samantha, was still there. She hadn't vanished when the excitement faded. Her big eyes stared out from under a curtain of dark, shoulder-length hair that curved softly around her face. I reached up and touched it, brushing the strands behind my ear. The texture was different. Softer. Silky. Not mine. I tugged gently at the hem of the pink tank top, then ran my fingers down the side of the ruffled denim skirt. My reflection copied every move, perfectly. I looked like a normal little girl. Like any other 8-year-old out shopping with her mom and cousin. But inside, I wasn't. Inside, I was still Tyler. A teenage guy. Who made a dumb bet. I sighed, lowering my hand from my hair. "I can't believe I agreed to this," I whispered to myself. But I had. And there was no going back, not until tonight. I looked down at my bare feet, now small and soft, the kind you'd expect to see on a second grader, not someone who used to be a teenage guy. A pair of shoes sat near the door. Rebecca's sneakers, bright pink with little silver stars on the sides. She must have left them out for me. Of course she did. I walked over and sat down at the edge of my bed, the hem of my skirt riding up slightly as I bent forward. I picked up one of the shoes and turned it over in my hands. It was small, light, and glittery. Just like everything else today. With a sigh, I slipped my foot in. It fit perfectly. I pulled the second one on, tugging the Velcro strap tight across the top. There! I was fully dressed now, from the heart-covered underwear to the pink tank top, the bouncy ruffled skirt, and now, the glittery shoes of an 8-year-old girl. I stood up and looked in the mirror one more time. Everything about me screamed Rebecca's age. Rebecca's cousin. Samantha. I wasn't just pretending anymore. I was her. At least for today. Chapter 3, Out the Door. The front door creaked open, sunlight spilling across the hardwood floor. I hesitated at the threshold, one foot in my sister's glittery pink sneaker, the other still inside the house. My heart was pounding in my chest like it wanted to make a run for it without me. Any second now, I half expected Mr. Henderson from next door to walk out to water his roses. Or the kid down the block to zip past on his bike, pointing and laughing. Maybe a group of moms would be pushing strollers, stopping to wave at my mom, only to freeze when they saw me standing there in a pink tank top and ruffled denim skirt. But no one was there. The street was quiet. Peaceful, even. Just a regular Saturday afternoon. Birds chirped lazily from the trees. The breeze rustled the leaves. A lawnmower buzzed faintly somewhere in the distance. But the sidewalk in front of our house? Totally empty. No one was staring. No one even knew. I took one cautious step out onto the porch, half expecting the spell to break, or reality to catch up with me. But nothing happened. The air was warm. The pavement was dry. And I was just a little girl standing outside in the sun. I let out a slow breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Behind me, Rebecca burst through the doorway like she was being shot from a cannon. "Come on, Sam! Let's go to the park before it gets too hot!" She ran ahead down the steps, her pigtails bouncing. I lingered for one more second, then stepped fully outside, the screen door clicking shut behind me. No turning back now! We walked down the sidewalk, Rebecca skipping ahead like this was the best day of her life. She held a plastic jump rope in one hand and a bag of chalk in the other, already planning her park activities out loud. I stuck close to Mom, my arms crossed and my cheeks still flushed from just being outside like this. As we turned the corner, the park coming into view, Mom leaned down slightly and spoke to me in a low voice, the kind that meant this was serious mom talk. "Sam, sweetie," she said, "just a quick reminder." I looked up at her warily. "You're wearing a skirt," she said gently but firmly. "So please be mindful. Keep your knees together when you sit, don't hang upside down on anything, and definitely don't flash anyone." I felt my face go red instantly. "Mom! I'm just saying," she said with a calm smile. "Being a little girl means different rules. People notice those things." I tugged at the hem of the skirt self-consciously. "Ugh! This is the worst!" She gave me a light pat on the back. "You'll survive! Just remember, ladylike, okay?" I muttered something that sounded like agreement, but mostly just sounded like defeat. Rebecca spun around up ahead. "Come on, Sam, let's go to the swings!" I followed slowly, feeling the ruffles of my skirt bounce with every step. The park loomed ahead, colorful, full of noise, and suddenly very real. And I was about to walk into it dressed like this. The park was buzzing with activity, kids running, moms chatting under the pavilion, the distant clack of someone skateboarding near the tennis courts. Rebecca ran straight to the swings, dropping her chalk and jump rope nearby like they didn't matter anymore. "Brace you!" she called. I didn't even try to beat her. I just walked over and sat down on the swing next to hers, gripping the chains on either side. The swing creaked slightly beneath me. I shifted uncomfortably, making sure my skirt didn't bunch up too high. So far, no one had stared. No one had screamed, "That's a boy in a skirt." I was just another girl at the park. I kicked off gently, letting the swing sway a little. That's when I noticed him. A boy, probably about our age, was standing a few feet away, watching us. I didn't recognize him. His hair was messy in a kind of cool way, and he had on a t-shirt with a cartoon dinosaur holding a skateboard. At first, I thought he was just waiting for a swing. But he didn't ask. He just kept looking at me. After a minute, he walked over casually and stood beside my swing, hands stuffed in his shorts pockets. "Hi," he said. I froze slightly. Hi. I haven't seen you here before," he added, smiling a little. "Are you new?" "Just visiting," I said quickly, trying to keep my voice light and my tone short. "What's your name?" I hesitated. Then, reluctantly, "Sam." He tilted his head. "Is that short for something?" I glanced at Rebecca, who was smirking way too hard for someone trying to pump her legs on a swing. "Samantha," I said, then immediately wished I hadn't. The boy grinned. "Cool. I'm Dylan." He shuffled his feet a little. "Wanna push each other on the swings or something?" My stomach dropped. I think I'm good," I said, looking down at the ground. "I'm just taking it easy today." He nodded. "Okay. Maybe later." Then he stepped back and wandered off, but not without glancing back once. Rebecca leaned toward me on her swing, whispering through a grin. "Someone's got a crush." "Shut up," I hissed. But my cheeks were already burning. The swings had lost their appeal after a while, especially with Dylan still hanging around the monkey bars, sneaking glances every few minutes. Rebecca eventually dragged me to a quieter spot near the edge of the park, where a bench sat under the shade of a big oak tree. It was calmer here, the laughter and shouting of other kids faded into the background, replaced by the rustle of leaves and the hum of bees floating through the flower beds nearby. We both flopped down onto the bench, Rebecca with her usual bounce, me with a heavy sigh that felt too dramatic for someone my apparent age. For a moment, neither of us said anything. We just sat there, legs dangling, watching the breeze ripple through the grass. Then Rebecca turned to me. Her voice was softer this time. "Is it really that bad?" she asked. "Being turned into a girl?" I blinked, surprised by the question. I glanced at her, expecting another smirk or giggle, but she was just looking at me, genuinely curious. I leaned back against the bench. "I don't know," I said slowly. "It's not like painful or anything. It's just weird." Rebecca nodded, waiting. "I feel like I'm pretending to be someone I'm not," I continued. "Like everyone sees me and thinks I'm this cute little girl, but inside I'm still me, Tyler. And it's like I don't fit right anymore." Rebecca swung her legs. "But you are cute! And you didn't even scream when that boy talked to you." I groaned. "Let's not talk about that." She giggled, then turned a little more serious again. "I just thought, maybe if you had to see what it was like, you'd understand me better. Or girls better. Like, how we feel when people stare at us, or tell us to sit a certain way, or call us names." I looked at her, surprised again. "That's why you made the bet?" I asked. She shrugged. "Part of it. And maybe because I thought it'd be funny." I snorted. "Well, congratulations! You got both!" We sat in silence again for a moment, and this time it felt less awkward. Then Rebecca smiled. "You know, you make a pretty good cousin." I rolled my eyes. "Yeah, well, don't get used to it." From across the park, Mom's voice rang out loud and clear. "Girls! Time to go, we've got a few stops to make before dinner." Rebecca immediately perked up. "Shopping time!" She hopped off the bench, already brushing grass off her skirt. I stood a little slower, adjusting the hem of my own. The skirt flounced with every step, and the pink tank top clung in all the ways I hadn't gotten used to yet. But somehow, it didn't feel as strange as it had that morning. We started walking across the grass together, side by side. I glanced over at Rebecca, who was humming to herself. I gave her a small, crooked smile. "I guess I'm ready for the rest of the day," I said. "You know, stuck like this." Rebecca looked at me, surprised, then smiled back. "Good." She leaned in a little closer, lowering her voice just enough to be teasing, "Because we're going to be looking at dresses. Lots of them! And we're going to make you look so cute!" I groaned. "I can't believe I made that bet!" Rebecca giggled, bouncing ahead of me. "You're going to love it, Samantha!" And before I could even protest, she skipped off across the path toward Mom, leaving me to trail behind in my glittery sneakers and ruffled skirt, already bracing for what was coming next. Chapter 4: Mall Madness. The mall doors whooshed open, and cool air blasted over us as we stepped inside. I paused for a moment on the threshold, the sound of distant chatter, squeaky shoes on tile, and faint pop music washing over me. I had been to this mall 100 times. With friends. With Mom. Just wandering around, grabbing snacks, maybe checking out the game store. But never like this. Never as a girl. I followed Mom and Rebecca inside, the glittery pink sneakers on my feet squeaking with each step. The ruffled denim skirt swished with every movement, brushing my thighs and reminding me, constantly, of how exposed I felt. It suddenly hit me how short it was. How small I was. How not me this all felt. I looked around the food court. People were just living their lives. Shopping, chatting, sipping sodas. But something about it felt off. Like everyone's eyes might land on me at any moment and no. I tugged at the hem of my skirt nervously. Then I noticed a man sitting near one of the fountain benches. Middle-aged. Alone. He wasn't doing anything, just sipping a coffee and glancing around. But his gaze lingered a second too long on Rebecca and me as we passed. Then another guy, teenager, maybe college-aged, stood by the escalator. He did a double take as we walked by, eyes narrowing slightly in our direction. A chill went up my spine. I pulled closer to Mom and Rebecca. The clothes I was wearing, the way my hair bounced around my shoulders, the soft pink of my tank top, none of it was a joke anymore. I wasn't invisible. I wasn't neutral. People saw a girl. A young girl. And some of those looks made me feel small for all the wrong reasons. Rebecca didn't seem to notice. She was already bouncing toward the girls' clothing section with a cheerful, "Come on, Sam! You have to try on something with sparkles!" Mom looked back at me and gave me a reassuring nod, like she knew. I took a deep breath, adjusted my skirt, and kept walking. I caught up with Mom just as she was sorting through a rack of frilly dresses, her hand brushing across one with pink tulle and silver sparkles. "Hey," she said casually, not even looking at me. "Just a heads up, tonight we're going to Aunt Nikki's for dinner." I blinked. "Wait, tonight? Mom!" She held up a lavender dress and looked at me critically. "And I want both of you girls looking nice. Dresses. Tights. The whole thing." My stomach flipped. "Seriously?" I asked, almost in a whisper. She nodded, already holding the lavender one up to my chest. "You're still Samantha until bedtime, remember? We'll let you change back after dinner." All I could think about was Aunt Nikki's house. And Emily. And Ethan, Emily, who was a year older than Rebecca and obsessed with dance recitals, glitter pens, and judging everyone's outfit. And Ethan, my cousin. My actual cousin. My friend. He was my age. We played video games together. Raced bikes in the cul-de-sac. He still thought I was Tyler. He had no idea he might be eating dinner tonight with me in a dress. And tights. I felt lightheaded. Mom moved on to another rack, chatting with Rebecca, who had already picked out something with sequins. But I just stood there, stuck in the moment. Nice dresses. Tights. Dinner with Emily and Ethan. This day was never going to end. Mom led me over to the dress racks like it was the most normal thing in the world. To her credit, she didn't say anything embarrassing. She didn't talk in a baby voice or gush about how precious I looked. She just walked, one hand on the cart, the other scanning hangers with practiced ease. I followed quietly, keeping my head down. The dresses stretched down the aisle in waves of pink, purple, teal, and every pastel shade in between. They shimmered with glitter, lace, bows, tulle, fabric that practically screamed. I stood there, arms limp at my sides, surrounded by tiny dresses that were never meant for someone like me. To anyone watching, anyone who wasn't in on the secret, I probably looked like a nervous tomboy being dragged through the worst day of her life. Just a girl who hated this stuff, trying to survive her mom's obsession with sparkle. And that's what made it worse. Because they didn't see a teenage boy trapped in a little girl's body. They just saw a shy 8-year-old, anxious about shopping. Mom was already holding up options. A bright pink one with lace around the collar. A lavender one with flower petals stitched into the skirt. A pale blue dress with white trim and layers of tulle that looked like something a ballerina would wear to a tea party. Each one was different. Different cut. Different fabric. Different shade. But they all had the same message. These are for girls. You are a girl. Act like it. I forced a shaky breath and glanced at my reflection in the nearest mirror, a small girl with shoulder-length hair, pink shoes, a frilly skirt, and wide eyes that didn't belong in this section of the store. I think this pink one would be adorable on you, Mom said, holding it up to my chest. It looked like it belonged in a doll's closet. Tyler wouldn't have touched it in a million years. But Tyler wasn't here right now. Samantha was. And she had to pick a dress for dinner. Mom was on a roll. She moved from one section of the rack to the next, her hands flipping through hangers like she was sorting mail. "Ooh, look at this one," she said, holding up another, purple lace, full skirt, cute ribbon around the waist. "This would look so sweet on you." I blinked at it. Lavender and delicate, with little embroidered flowers along the hem. It looked like something Rebecca would have worn to a birthday party 3 years ago. Before I could react, she swapped it out for a different one. "Or this yellow one, look at how sunny it is. I love the way the fabric gathers at the shoulders." It was frilly. Bright. The kind of yellow that practically glowed under the store lights. It had tiny pearl buttons down the back and a bow that was way too big. Then came the blue one. Pale and soft, with white lace trim and little capped sleeves. "Classic, right?" Mom said. "Very proper. Very cute." She wasn't wrong. Each dress was different. Different fabric. Different cut. Different little details. But every single one said the same thing. "This is for a girl." I stood still, letting her hold them up one by one, each one chipping away at the part of me that was still Tyler. Still not Samantha. Still holding out a hope that this whole thing would just wear off. I crossed my arms, trying to feel like myself again, but the fabric of the tank top was too soft, too tight in the wrong places. The skirt swayed when I shifted. My hair kept brushing my cheeks. It was like even my own body had turned against me. Mom was still talking, comparing two of the dresses. "I think the purple's more formal, but the blue one's a little softer. What do you think, Sam?" I didn't answer. Because what could I say? I wasn't supposed to know how to choose between shades of femininity. I wasn't supposed to be standing here in the middle of them all feeling like I was someone else's reflection in a mirror. But I was. And there was no getting around it. The dressing room smelled faintly of carpet cleaner and body spray. The overhead lights buzzed softly, casting a sterile glow on the mirror-lined walls and pale wooden bench. I stood in the center, staring at the dresses Mom had draped over the hook. Pink, purple, yellow, blue. Each one more girly than the last. I swallowed hard. Mom closed the curtain behind us, giving us a small slice of privacy. "Alright," she said gently. "Let's try the purple one first." She slipped it off the hanger and held it out. I hesitated, then reached for the hem and pulled my pink tank top over my head, feeling the cooler air hit my skin. I shivered, not just from temperature. Next came the skirt, which I pushed down awkwardly. Standing there in just the heart-patterned panties Rebecca had picked out felt 10 times more embarrassing now than it had this morning. Mom didn't say anything, just handed me the purple dress. I stepped into it slowly, feeling the fabric slide over my arms and shoulders. It was soft, way too soft, and the inside of the bodice had a silky liner that clung to my skin in a way that made me shiver again. Mom stood behind me. "Turn around, sweetie." I did. I felt her fingers at the back of my neck, pulling the zipper up slowly. The fabric tightened slightly around my chest, hugging my small frame. I caught my reflection in the mirror. The purple dress had a full skirt that fell just above my knees. Lace sleeves. A ribbon tied at the waist. It looked like something a flower girl would wear in a wedding. And somehow, it fit me perfectly. I didn't say anything. I just stared. Mom looked over my shoulder. "It suits you." I didn't respond. Next came the yellow dress. We went through the same motions, undressing, stepping in, the rustle of fabric as it slid into place. The bow in the back was even bigger this time. Mom zipped me up again, her hands gentle and practiced like she'd done this 1,000 times before, with Rebecca. Not with me. And finally, the blue one. The softest. The simplest. It made me look like someone else's daughter. Someone I didn't know. Each time I turned to let her zip me up, I could feel myself shrinking, not physically, but in this emotional, helpless way. Like I was disappearing behind ruffles and pastel fabric and becoming someone I didn't ask to be. But the worst part? Every dress fit so well. Like Samantha was real. And Tyler had never been here at all. I stood in front of the mirror again, now back in the purple dress. The lace sleeves itched slightly at the shoulders, and the ribbon tied around my waist tugged every time I breathed. The skirt puffed out more than I liked, swaying gently whenever I shifted my feet. It was delicate, bright, and completely unlike anything I'd ever worn before this day. But somehow, it was the least awful of the bunch. Not good. Not me. But manageable. Mom stepped behind me, adjusting the bow in the back. "So," she asked, her tone light, "which one for dinner tonight?" I hesitated. My reflection looked like she was waiting to say something else, like maybe she'd speak up and shout "None of them," or "I'm going home," or "Give me back my jeans." But instead, I heard myself say, "The purple one." Mom gave me a small smile, brushing a wrinkle out of the skirt. "Good choice." I didn't nod. I just looked away from the mirror. Rebecca's voice called from outside the curtain. "Is she ready yet?" Mom opened the curtain a crack. "Almost. She's decided on the purple dress." I could practically hear Rebecca's grin in her voice. "She's gonna look so cute." I bit the inside of my cheek, fighting the urge to roll my eyes. But part of me didn't even have the energy anymore. The dress had been chosen, dinner at Aunt Nikki's was happening. And Samantha still had a few hours left to go. As I stepped out of the dressing room in the purple dress, tugging awkwardly at the sleeves, Rebecca was already waiting, practically bouncing in place. Her arms were full of sparkles. "I picked mine," she announced proudly, spinning around so the dress she'd chosen fanned out dramatically. It was very pink. Bubblegum pink, with a layered tulle skirt, glittery butterflies stitched into the bodice, and little rhinestones around the collar. It even shimmered under the mall lights. "You love it, right?" she said, clearly expecting agreement. I blinked. "It's pink." "Exactly," she grinned. "And sparkly. And dramatic. It's perfect for dinner." She looked me up and down. "You look really good in that one too. The purple brings out your hair." "Thanks," I muttered, though I wasn't sure if it was a compliment or a reminder that I now had hair long enough for that kind of thing to matter. Mom joined us, smiling as she held up a pair of white tights and matching dress shoes for each of us. "Alright, girls, she said. Let's check out, and then we need to head home and get ready. We don't want to be late to Aunt Nikki's. Rebecca grabbed her dress and skipped toward the checkout. I followed slower, still adjusting to the feel of the skirt brushing against my legs with every step. It was happening! I was going to dinner in a dress. With tights. And my cousins were going to see all of it. After checking out with the dresses, Mom turned to me and gave a small, satisfied nod. Okay, last thing, shoes and tights for dinner. I blinked. We're not done? She smiled like she knew exactly what I was thinking. Not quite. You've got the dress, but you can't go to a nice family dinner in glitter sneakers. I looked down at the pink shoes I was wearing, which suddenly felt more childish than ever. They squeaked when I shifted my weight, as if to agree with her. A few minutes later, we were in the girls' shoe section. Rebecca had wandered off to try on a headband with cat ears, leaving me alone with Mom on the wall of dainty, shiny options. Mom scanned the shelves, her hand moving over ballet flats, buckle sandals, and, there they were! Black Mary Janes! Shiny patent leather! Rounded toe! A delicate strap across the top with a tiny silver buckle. Here we go, she said, pulling a pair in my size. Classic and cute! I stared at them like they might bite me. You want me to wear those? She nodded. They go with the dress. And they're perfect with white tights. I sighed as she knelt and helped me try them on, slipping one onto my foot like it was no big deal. The inside was soft, the sole just thick enough to make me feel like I was wearing something delicate instead of practical. She fastened the buckle and looked up at me. Not bad, right? I stared down at the shiny black shoes, peeking out under the hem of my skirt. They looked like they belonged to a girl going to Sunday school. They didn't look like they belonged to me. Can we just get this over with? I muttered. Mom gave my shoulder a gentle squeeze and stood up. Almost done. Let's grab a pair of white tights, and then we'll go home. We made our way to the accessories aisle, and Mom didn't even hesitate. She picked out a pack of opaque white tights in my size and added them to the cart without a word. I followed quietly, feeling the skirt sway with every step and the polished shoes clicking softly beneath me. Dress! Tights! Mary Janes! I was fully outfitted for dinner as Samantha. Whether I liked it or not. Chapter 5, A Few Hours of Freedom. By the time we pulled into the driveway, my legs were tired, my feet ached from the pink tennis shoes, and my patience was barely holding together. Mom unlocked the front door and stepped inside with a cheerful, "We've got a few hours before dinner, girls. Let's relax for a bit, then we'll get you two changed and ready." Rebecca practically skipped past me, humming as she carried her bag up the stairs, probably already dreaming about twirling in her glittery pink dress. I followed more slowly, each step making the ruffles of my skirt shift around my legs, loud, rustly, in there. I couldn't forget it for even a second. When I got to my room, I didn't even turn the light on. I just closed the door behind me, dropped onto the bed, and let out a long, frustrated sigh. I flopped backward, arms splayed out, staring up at the ceiling. The pink tank top clung to my chest. And the denim ruffle skirt? It was the worst part. I tugged at it again, trying to shift it lower or make it sit differently, but nothing helped. It moved when I moved. It swished when I walked. It reminded me, constantly, that I wasn't supposed to be me today. All I wanted was to pull it off. Throw on some shorts. Crawl back into my old hoodie. But I couldn't. Because for the rest of the day, I was Samantha. And in a few hours, I'd be back in that dressing room nightmare, white tights, fancy dress, shoes that clicked on every surface, and then sitting at a dinner table across from Ethan and Emily. I groaned into my pillow. What was I even doing? The house was quiet, except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. After laying in my room for what felt like forever, I finally dragged myself downstairs in search of something to drink, anything to take my mind off the scratchy waistband of my skirt or the growing pit in my stomach about dinner. I stepped into the kitchen, the floor cool under the soles of my Mary Janes. That's when I saw it. sitting there on the counter like it had just been left out after breakfast. The potion. The same shimmering bottle I'd seen that morning, but now, without Mom anywhere in sight, and no explanation as to why it was just there. My breath caught in my throat. She'd said I'd be turned back after dinner. After. Not before. Not now. But there it was, right there. Unattended. Within reach. I glanced around. No footsteps. No voices. Just the quiet hum of the house. She must have forgotten it, I thought. Or maybe she left it out for later. I stood still for a few seconds, staring at it. I could feel my pulse thudding in my chest. The bottle glimmered faintly in the afternoon light, its color a mix of pale green and gold. Not the bubblegum pink like the one I drank this morning. This one would reverse it. It would fix it. My fingers moved before I even fully made the decision. I grabbed the bottle, twisted off the cap, and lifted it to my lips. It didn't smell like bubblegum. It smelled sharp. Minty. A little sour. Still, I drank. One long gulp. The potion slid down my throat, cool and strange. Almost immediately, my stomach clenched and heat began to rise in my chest. I froze, waiting. Was it working? Did I just... Footsteps. From upstairs. Someone was coming. And I had no idea what I'd just set in motion. The warmth spread fast, too fast. It hit my chest first, then radiated through my arms and legs, my fingertips tingling like they were waking up from being asleep. My knees buckled slightly, and I grabbed the edge of the counter to steady myself. I closed my eyes, waiting to feel myself stretch, waiting for my limbs to lengthen, my voice to deepen, for my body to grow back into the teenager I actually was. But something felt wrong. Off. I didn't feel taller. In fact, if anything, I felt shorter. Thinner. Lighter. My hair, it was gone. My hands, smaller, but rougher. And then I looked down. The denim skirt still flared out from my waist. The heart-patterned panties were still in place. But underneath all of it, I was no longer Samantha. I was Tyler again. Just not my Tyler. Not teenage Tyler. 8-year-old boy Tyler. I let out a quiet gasp and stumbled back from the counter, heart pounding. The potion had worked, but not the way I expected. I was a boy again, but still stuck in a little kid's body. And I was wearing a tank top, a ruffled denim skirt, and glittery Mary Janes. Footsteps pounded on the stairs. Rebecca's voice floated down the hall. "Sam? Where'd you go?" Panic shot through me. I had seconds, maybe less, before someone walked in and saw me like this. A boy. In full girl clothes. I ducked into the laundry room, shutting the door softly behind me. My breath came in short, rapid bursts. "What just happened?" I whispered. The skirt still clung to my waist. I caught a glimpse of myself in the reflection on the dryer door. 8-year-old Tyler. Dressed as Samantha. And now I had no idea what to do next. I barely had time to breathe before the laundry room door creaked open. "Tyler," Mom's voice snapped like a whip, sharp, disappointed, and way too loud in the small space. I froze. She stood in the doorway, arms crossed, eyes locking onto me instantly. There was no confusion on her face, just frustration, like she'd expected this the second she realized the potion was missing. "You got into something you weren't supposed to," she said flatly. I looked down at myself, ruffled skirt, pink tank top, glitter shoes, and sighed. "Sorry," I muttered. Her eyes narrowed. "You went behind my back. You drank something you didn't understand. Do you have any idea how dangerous that could have been?" "I thought it would change me back," I snapped. "You just left it there on the counter." "And I expected you to listen," she fired back. "Not go behind my back like some sneaky little..." I didn't want to wear the stupid dress to Aunt Nikki's. Mom blinked, caught off guard for a second. I crossed my arms. Guess that doesn't matter now, though. Because I'm a boy again. So I guess I'm not going to dinner in a dress. Her expression shifted slowly into something that made my stomach drop. No, she said. You are going to dinner. I frowned. But I'm a boy now. And you're still 8 years old. The dress still fits, Tyler. My heart skipped. You're still going to Aunt Nikki's. Still in that dress. Still with those shoes. You wanted out of being Samantha, fine. But now you're just going to be Tyler, a little boy, wearing that same dress. I stared at her, stunned. You broke the rules, Tyler, she said, arms still crossed. And now, you're going to learn what that looks like. I felt the blood drain from my face. A boy. In a dress. In front of my cousins. I didn't mean. You made the choice, she said calmly. Now go back upstairs and get your tights on. We leave in an hour. And with that, she turned and walked out, leaving me in the laundry room, still dressed, still small, and suddenly more nervous than I'd ever been in my life. I climbed the stairs slowly, each step feeling heavier than the last, even though I probably weighed less than 60 pounds now. The skirt bounced with every movement, still swishing against my legs. The pink sneakers clicked against the wooden stairs. I couldn't escape the sound. The feeling. The look. I was a boy again. But not free. As I reached the top step, Rebecca came out of her room and immediately froze when she saw me. Her eyes widened, then narrowed with pure mischief. No way, she whispered. I didn't even try to explain. I just kept walking toward my room. Oh my gosh, she giggled, skipping after me. You're a boy now. A boy in girls' clothes, that's so much worse. Shut up, Rebecca. You're wearing your new dress next, aren't you? Or do you want the ones with the sparkles? Rebecca. You know, this is kinda poetic. First you're a girl in girl clothes, now you're a boy in girl clothes. You've come full circle. I walked faster. She kept pace like a shadow, grinning the whole way. I should tell Emily. She's gonna love this. Rebecca. I reached my bedroom door, yanked it open, stepped inside, and slam! The door shut in her face, cutting off the rest of her teasing mid-sentence. I stood there in the quiet for a moment, hands balled into fists at my sides. The skirt was still rustling softly around my knees. And in less than an hour, I'd be going to dinner like this. I stood in the middle of my room, the skirt still rustling gently around my legs, the pink tank top clinging uncomfortably to my chest. Enough! I yanked the tank top over my head and tossed it onto the bed. Then I kicked off the glittery pink shoes, unzipped the denim skirt, and let it fall to the floor in a soft pile of lace and ribbon. For the first time all day, I felt like I could breathe. I crossed the room to my dresser, pulled open the bottom drawer, and grabbed a pair of my old jeans. Real clothes. Boy clothes. I held them up, the denim heavy in my hands. Then I tried to put them on. And they slipped right off my waist. I tried a shirt next, my favorite gray hoodie. It swallowed me completely. The sleeves dangled past my hands. The collar hung halfway to my chest. I looked like I'd raided someone else's closet. Because I had. My real clothes didn't fit anymore. Because I wasn't my real size anymore. I was still 8. Still tiny. Still stuck. I sat down heavily on the edge of my bed, staring at the pile of Samantha clothes on the floor. The purple dress. The white tights. The shiny black shoes. It wasn't just embarrassing now. It was inevitable. If I didn't want to show up to dinner in an oversized hoodie that made me look like a toddler in costume, there was only one option. I had to wear the dress. I had to pull on the tights. I had to buckle those stupid shoes. Because I had nothing else. I sat there for a long minute, just staring at it all. Then I reached down and picked up the tights. I sat on the edge of my bed, the tights in my hands, bunched up like a puzzle I didn't know how to solve. They looked so thin. delicate, like they'd rip if I tugged too hard. I stared at them for a long second, then sighed and called out toward the hallway. "Mom?" A few seconds later, she appeared in the doorway, arms crossed, not angry anymore, just waiting. I held up the tights, not even trying to hide the awkwardness in my voice. "I don't know how to put these on." Her expression softened. She stepped into the room, crouched down in front of me, and took one of the tights gently from my hand. "Start by scrunching them up like this," she said, demonstrating with the first leg, "and then slide your foot in slowly. Don't force it, go toes first." I followed her lead. It was weird, really weird, but she didn't make it feel like a big deal. Just quiet, calm instruction. Once my foot was through, she helped guide it up to my knee. "Now the other leg." We repeated the process. And then I stood, and she helped me pull the waistband gently up into place. The tights were snug and smooth. Uncomfortably so. They clung to my legs, like a second skin. But they fit. "Thanks," I mumbled, looking down at my feet. Then she picked up the dress. "Arms up." I hesitated for half a second, then obeyed. She slipped the purple dress over my head, guiding my arms through the lacy sleeves as the soft fabric settled around me. "Turn around," she said gently. I did. I felt her fingers at the back of my neck again, and then the soft zip of the dress being fastened into place. Up. Tight. Done. I stared down at myself, white tights, purple dress, tiny shoes sitting nearby on the floor, waiting for me to step into them. There was no denying it now. I was Tyler. Dressed for dinner. As a very fancy 8-year-old girl. Mom stepped back and gave my shoulder a little squeeze. "You'll be okay," she said softly. "It's just dinner." I wasn't sure if she meant it to comfort me. But it didn't. The Mary Janes were waiting on the floor like punctuation marks. Black. Shiny. Innocent looking. The kind of shoes a girl wears with tights and a twirly dress, just like the one I was wearing now. I sat down on the edge of the bed, bent over, and slid one on. My tights made it easy, almost too easy, and the strap snapped gently across the top of my foot as I buckled it. Then the other shoe? Click! Done! I stood up slowly, the floor cool beneath the thin soles. My skirt rustled with the movement, swaying gently as I took a small step forward. Then I turned toward the mirror. And I stopped. A boy looked back at me. A boy in a purple lace dress. A boy with his hair combed neatly, white tights stretched perfectly over his small legs, and shiny Mary Janes peeking out from beneath a skirt that didn't belong to him. The face was mine. But it was framed by ruffles. Nothing about it looked right. But none of it looked wrong either. At least, not to someone who didn't know. To anyone else, I probably looked like a quiet, shy little boy in girls' clothes ready for dinner at her aunt's house. But I knew better. I was Tyler. And I was wearing a dress, and there was no getting out of it now. I opened my bedroom door slowly, feeling the fabric of the dress tug slightly against the tights with every step. The click of my shoes on the hallway floor was maddening, soft but distinct, impossible to ignore. And of course, Rebecca was already waiting. She turned the second she heard me, standing there in her bright pink glittery dress, her hair pulled into pigtails with matching ribbons. "Oh! My! Gosh!" she squealed, putting both hands over her mouth. "You look so cute!" I rolled my eyes. "Please don't!" "But you do!" she beamed. Like, way cuter than I thought a boy in a dress could ever look. "Gee! Thanks!" She twirled, making her skirt fan out like a sparkly tornado. "We totally match! Purple and pink, like princess cousins." I didn't even answer. I just walked past her, heading for the stairs, each step reminding me of the tights clinging to my legs and the way the skirt bounced with every movement. As I reached the landing, Mom turned from the coat rack, her eyes lighting up. "There they are!" she said, pressing her hands together. "You two look absolutely darling!" She walked over and adjusted the bow on Rebecca's waist, then turned to smooth down the front of my dress. "Mom!" I muttered, trying to pull back a little. "Hold still," she said, fluffing the skirt. "The purple really does suit you." Rebecca beamed beside me. I told him. Before I could escape, Mom held up her phone. "Okay, stand right there on the stairs, both of you. I have to get a picture." "No," I said immediately. "No pictures." Mom raised an eyebrow. "It's just for me. One quick shot." "I don't want." "Tyler," she said, her voice firm but still light. "You made a choice, and you're going to see it through. Now stand next to your sister and smile." Rebecca was already posing, hands on her hips like it was a red carpet event. I stood stiffly beside her, arms glued to my sides, forcing a half smile that looked more like a grimace. Click! Mom smiled. "Perfect! Let's go, girls!" I sighed and followed them to the door, each step feeling heavier than the last. Now there was proof! Proof I wore a dress! Proof I smiled in it! And I hadn't even made it to Aunt Nikki's yet! As Mom picked up her purse and keys, she clapped her hands once. "Okay, girls, time to go!" I rolled my eyes. Girls! Right! I was not a girl anymore. Not physically, anyway. But unfortunately, I was still dressed like one. Dress! Tights! Mary Jane's! The works! I followed Mom and Rebecca out the front door, the late afternoon sun lighting up the street with that soft, golden glow that made everything feel just a little too normal. As we stepped onto the porch, the neighbor's screen door creaked open next door. Steve! Our next door neighbor! Late 30s! Beard! Always barbecuing something! He stepped out holding a plastic container in one hand. "Hey!" he called across the lawn. "Been meaning to bring this back. Thanks for the chili last weekend." Mom smiled, stepping forward. "No problem! Glad you liked it." Steve walked a little closer, glancing between us, Mom, Rebecca in her pink glitter bomb of a dress, and me. In mine. At first, his eyes skimmed right past me. Probably thought I was one of Rebecca's friends. Maybe a cousin. But then he looked again. Slower this time. And paused. His brow creased. I knew that look. He didn't recognize me, of course he didn't. Why would he? I was 8 again. Way too small to be the teenager next door. But still. His eyes lingered a beat too long on the dress, the tights, the shoes. He knows I'm a boy, I thought. He just doesn't know it's me. Before the moment could drag on, Mom stepped in smoothly, her hands gently landing on my shoulders. "Oh, have you met Sam?" I stiffened slightly under her touch. Steve blinked, looking from her to me again. No," he said. "Hi there." I gave a half-hearted wave. "Hi." "Samuel's visiting," Mom continued, now using the boy version of my girl name, cheerful and calm. "And you know, he's part of that new fashion wave. Boys in dresses, very in trend lately." She smiled like it was the most normal thing in the world. Steve chuckled a little, scratching his beard. "Huh! Can't imagine Tyler wearing something like that." Mom laughed. "Oh, you'd be surprised." They both chuckled. And I just stood there, frozen in place, feeling the heat rise to my face. "Yeah," I thought. "You'd be really surprised, buddy." Chapter 6: The Reunion. The car rolled to a stop in front of Aunt Nikki's house, familiar white siding, hanging plants on the porch, and that same cracked stone walkway we used to race down during summer BBQs. Rebecca unbuckled herself and hopped out of the backseat in a blur of glitter and excitement. I followed slower, one hand holding down the front of my dress as I stepped out carefully in my shiny black Mary Janes. The late afternoon sun was warm, but all I could feel was cold nerves in my chest. They were already outside. Ethan stood by the porch, his hands in his pockets, wearing pressed slacks and a clean navy polo shirt. He looked taller than I remembered. More grown up. Like an actual teenager. Next to him stood Emily, in a sleek black dress with white tights and black Mary Janes, almost a mirror image of my own outfit, just in darker colors. Her arms were folded, her posture confident and casual, like she already knew she looked good. They both turned when they heard the car doors shut. And then they saw me. Everything stopped. Ethan's brow furrowed immediately, confusion written all over his face. He looked from me to my mom, then to Rebecca, like maybe there was some explanation waiting nearby. Emily didn't say anything. She just stared. At my purple dress. At the white tights clinging to my legs. At the shoes. At me. Me. Not as Tyler. Not as the cousin they probably expected to see pulling up in jeans and a hoodie, making dumb jokes and dodging hugs. But as this. An 8-year-old boy in a girl's dress. Frozen on the sidewalk, feeling like I'd just stepped into a spotlight with no place to hide. Rebecca walked ahead like nothing was wrong, waving. "Hey, Ethan! Hey, Emily!" Mom gently touched my shoulder from behind. "Come on, Tyler!" I flinched. Ethan's eyes locked onto me again. He knew something wasn't adding up, but there was no recognition in his face. Not yet. I took a breath and stepped forward, each click of my shoes on the pavement sounding louder than it should. Every part of me wanted to turn around and run back to the car. But I didn't. Because I couldn't. We were only a few steps from the porch when the front door swung open and Aunt Nikki stepped out, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "There you are!" she called with a big smile. "Come on in, dinner's almost ready." She looked first at Rebecca and grinned. "Oh, sweetie, you look adorable! That dress is too cute!" Rebecca twirled proudly, of course. Then Aunt Nikki looked at me. And her smile faltered, just for a second. Her eyes scanned me from head to toe. The purple dress. The tights. The shoes. The small, unmistakably boyish face. Then she blinked. "Oh," she said, trying to recover quickly. "Oh! So this is... Samantha?" I looked up at her, cheeks burning. "It's... Tyler!" I went back to being a boy. Aunt Nikki's eyebrows rose. "Tyler?" Mom stepped forward smoothly, her voice light but carefully measured. "The bet, remember? I told you lost and had to be a little girl for the day." Right, Aunt Nikki said, nodding. "You mentioned that." Then she gave me a longer look. "I just didn't realize he'd be... well, still a boy in the body, I mean." "It's complicated," Mom said with a chuckle, putting a gentle hand on my back. "He tried to shortcut things a bit. Didn't exactly go as planned." "I can see that," Aunt Nikki said, still blinking. Meanwhile, Ethan and Emily stood off to the side, still watching silently, Ethan looking more and more confused, Emily wearing the faintest smirk of interest. "Well," Aunt Nikki finally said, stepping aside and motioning us in, "you look very nice, Tyler. Or Samantha. Or whoever you're being right now." "Thanks," I mumbled, stepping past her, skirt swaying slightly with every reluctant move. Ethan and Emily stepped aside to let me in. Neither of them said anything, but I could feel their eyes on me. Especially Ethan's. Like he was trying to put a puzzle together that didn't make sense. Because nothing about this did. And dinner hadn't even started yet. We stepped into the living room, the smell of roasted chicken and something cheesy drifting in from the kitchen. Everyone moved around like it was just another family dinner, and Nikki checking on rolls in the oven, Rebecca chatting with Emily, Mom putting her purse down by the couch. I stood near the doorway, unsure where to put my hands, or how to make my skirt stop swaying every time I shifted my weight. Then Aunt Nikki looked up and grinned. "Well," she said, voice light and teasing, "if Tyler's wearing a dress tonight, maybe Ethan should go put one on too. You know, keep things balanced." The room burst into laughter, Rebecca snorted, Emily giggled behind her hand, even Mom let out a chuckle. Everyone laughed. Except me. And Ethan. He glanced at me for a second, clearly uncomfortable. I just looked down at my shoes. Aunt Nikki waved a hand. Kidding, kidding. Tyler, why don't you head upstairs and wash up a bit, sweetie? Dinner's almost ready. I nodded quickly, grateful for the excuse to escape. Okay. I turned and headed toward the stairs, the hem of my dress brushing lightly against my tights with every step. Just as I reached the first landing, I heard footsteps behind me. Ethan! He jogged up beside me, hands in his pockets, walking like this was no big deal at all. For him, it wasn't. Man, he said, glancing over at me. I am so glad I'm not in your shoes. He looked down at my actual shoes. Literally. I didn't say anything. He kept walking with me up the stairs. Seriously, though. I'd never let my mom do that to me. Make me wear a dress? Are you kidding? I gave him a quick side glance. He was trying to be chill about it, but I could feel the second-hand embarrassment rolling off him. Like he felt awkward just being near me in a dress. Like my situation might rub off on him if he stood too close. I didn't respond. My throat felt tight. I just kept walking, one step at a time, my shoes clicking on the hardwood floor. Because what was I supposed to say? Yeah, me neither, man. But here I am. By the time Ethan and I came back downstairs, the dining room table was already set, plates, silverware, and cloth napkins folded neatly. The smells from the kitchen were stronger now, chicken, rolls, something warm and buttery. Aunt Nikki looked up from the casserole she was setting down and smiled. Perfect timing, boys, boy and girl. She winked at me. I sat down where Mom motioned, one of the side chairs, next to Rebecca. My skirt flared slightly as I settled in, and I had to remember to smooth it down like Mom had shown me earlier. Ethan slid into the seat across from me, trying very hard to pretend like none of this was weird. It was absolutely weird. We were barely halfway into the first round of small talk when Mom spoke up, casually but clearly. You know, she said, if Tyler hadn't tried to sneak that potion early, things might have gone very differently tonight. My stomach turned. Ethan looked up. What do you mean? Mom smiled over at Aunt Nikki. We had a plan. Aunt Nikki grinned. Oh yes. If Tyler had stayed as an 8-year-old girl, then someone else would be wearing a dress too. She looked directly at Ethan. Ethan blinked. Wait. What? You, Mom said, still smiling sweetly. If Tyler hadn't jumped the gun by drinking that potion, you were going to also be in the dress tonight. Me? Ethan's voice cracked slightly. Absolutely, Aunt Nikki said, way too casually. When I heard Tyler became Samantha, I figured you might feel left out. We had a dress picked out and everything. Ethan stared at both of them, mouth slightly open, his face going redder by the second. He didn't say anything. Neither did I. But my brain, despite all the embarrassment I'd been through today, couldn't help but wonder for a second. Ethan? 8 years old. Wearing white tights and a frilly dress. Sitting in my seat, blinking at the table while everyone smiled like it was perfectly normal. Would he be as mortified as I was? Would he have been better at handling it? Worse? I glanced at him across the table. Still blushing, still quiet. Still not in a dress. But now he knew he could have been. Part of me wanted to laugh. Another part wanted to trade places with him immediately. The clinking of forks and plates filled the dining room as everyone began to eat. Aunt Nikki passed the rolls, Rebecca loaded her plate with mashed potatoes, and Emily, ever the poised one, carefully cut her chicken into perfect little bites. I just tried not to draw attention to myself. Every time I reached for something, I was aware of how the sleeves of my dress shifted. Every time I sat up straight or crossed my legs, the skirt tugged or rustled. The tights hitched faintly behind my knees. And the Mary Janes pinched just enough to remind me that I wasn't me, not the way I was supposed to be. So, Samantha, Aunt Nikki said, smiling across the table, how has your day as a girl been? Rebecca giggled instantly. I tried not to glare at her. It's been a day, I said, stabbing at a green bean. Ethan snorted quietly. Honestly, though, and Nikki continued, you've handled it better than I expected. Especially the dress. That's not just any dress, that's a sit up straight and don't spill anything dress. Mom chuckled. And he didn't even flinch when I zipped him into it. Did he twirl? Emily asked, raising an eyebrow. No, I said flatly. Oh, not yet, Rebecca chimed in. But there's still time. I'm not twirling. Everyone laughed, except me and Ethan. I caught his eye for a second. He looked like he wanted to disappear into his dinner roll. Tell you what, Aunt Nikki said. Next time you kids make a bet like this, include Ethan, I would love for him to wear a dress next time. Ethan nearly choked on his water. Pass, he said quickly. But I saw the flush creep back into his face. You're lucky you didn't lose this time, I muttered under my breath, just loud enough for him to hear. He looked at me, half embarrassed, half smirking. Yeah, he said. I know. The plates were scraped clean, napkins crumpled beside empty glasses, and the last few bites of pie were claimed in a flurry of dessert forks. As everyone leaned back in their chairs, full on content, I kept glancing at the clock. Dinner was over. Which meant the end of this long, weird, humiliating day was finally close. Mom stood and began gathering dishes. Alright, girls, let's help clear up, then we'll head out. I stood carefully, still smoothing down the skirt of the purple dress even though I was beyond caring how wrinkled it looked by now. Rebecca skipped into the kitchen with a grin, humming to herself as she carried plates. Ethan stayed quiet, giving me the occasional sideways glance but thankfully not saying anything else. A few minutes later, we were by the front door. Shoes back on, jackets in hand. I was as close to being free. We started our goodbyes, Rebecca hugging Emily, Mom chatting with Aunt Nikki at the doorway. I just kind of hovered, mentally counting the steps back to the car. 5 more minutes. Maybe 10. Then I could be home. I could pull off the tights, toss the dress into the closet, and be Tyler again. Aunt Nikki turned to me, smiling far too sweetly. Well, Tyler, she said, clearly savoring it. I hope next time, you do end up in a dress again. I blinked. And I hope you stay a little itty bitty, cute, adorable girl just a bit longer. My mouth opened slightly. The warmth flushed into my cheeks almost instantly. I could barely manage a muttered, thanks, before looking at the floor. Rebecca giggled behind me. Mom just smiled. Come on, kids! Let's get going! We stepped out onto the porch. The cool evening air hit my face, and for the first time all day, it actually felt like relief. The end was near. And I couldn't wait. Chapter 7, One More Night. The second we walked through the front door, I kicked off the Mary Janes and practically sprinted up the stairs. I'm going to my room, I called down, not bothering to wait. I'm throwing the stress off and getting back to being me again. The purple skirt swished with every step as I climbed, but I didn't care, not anymore. The tights itched, the dress was too tight around the waist, and I had never been so ready to be Tyler again. Teenage Tyler. Normal Tyler. I reached the landing and was about to turn toward my room when Mom's voice stopped me cold. Tyler! I turned. She was standing at the foot of the stairs, arms crossed. That was never a good sign. I paused. Yeah? She took a slow, deliberate step up. You did drink the potion without permission. I swallowed. Yeah. I know. And you did go behind my back this morning. I said I was sorry, I muttered. She raised an eyebrow. Which is why I think a little punishment is in order. I felt the weight drop into my stomach again. What kind of punishment? She smiled, not cruelly, but like she'd been planning this moment all day. You won't be turned back into a teenage boy until tomorrow morning. What? I looked around, as if someone might jump in and say just kidding. That's not fair. Mom stepped past me calmly, motioning for me to follow. Life's not fair, sweetheart. Come with me. Still fuming, I followed her down the hall. She didn't stop at my room. She walked straight into Rebecca's. That's when I saw it, folded neatly on the bed. A light blue nightgown. With butterflies. They were everywhere. Pink, purple, white, fluttering across the fabric like I was about to attend a sleepover at a fairy princess's cottage. No, I said immediately, backing up a step. Yes, Mom said firmly, picking it up and turning toward me. You're still Samantha for the night. That means sleeping like Samantha. She held it out toward me. I just stared. This is so messed up, I muttered. Consider it a final lesson, she said with a smile. Next time you think about sneaking potions, maybe you'll think twice. I took the nightgown slowly, my fingers brushing the soft, fluttery fabric. Tonight, I was still a boy in girls' clothes. And there was no escape.
Chapter 8, Another Bet. It was Friday night again, 1 week later. And somehow, here I was, back in the exact same spot. Same stadium. Same aluminum bleachers. Same freezing wind cutting through my hoodie. The band was blasting their pep tunes, the student section was loud and chaotic, and the field lights made everything glow like we were under a spotlight. But this time, we were winning. It was homecoming. The Lions were up by 10, and there were less than 5 minutes left on the clock. The crowd was buzzing. Everything felt right. I was actually enjoying the game. Until Rebecca nudged me with her elbow. "Hey," she said a little too casually. I didn't look away from the field. "What?" "I bet the home team loses again." I sighed. "Really? You're gonna try that again?" She just grinned. "I'm serious." I finally glanced over at her. "Rebecca, it's homecoming. We're up by 2 scores. There's no way they lose this time." She shrugged, smug. "That's what you said last time." I could already feel the setup coming. "Don't even say it." She leaned in closer, lowering her voice. "If they lose, you're back to being Samantha." I blinked at her. She grinned wider. "For the whole weekend." I stared, trying to decide if she was kidding. She wasn't. I could still feel the ghost of that purple dress. The way the tights itched. The way the skirt swayed every time I moved. And now, she wanted to roll the dice again? I looked right at her. "Okay, if I have to go back to being Samantha for the weekend, then if they win, you have to be a boy. All weekend." Her eyes lit up. "You mean like really a boy?" "Full transformation," I said, smirking. "Not just baggy clothes and calling yourself Max or something. If I'm doing the full thing again, you are too." Rebecca bit her lip, like she was pretending to think it over. Then she smiled and stuck out her hand. "Deal." I shook it. Again. What could possibly go wrong?